Thank you so much for coming to the show. First of all, I want to ask a simple question. I mean, in the last 3 weeks alone, I mean, there has been threat about my life, a plan to, terror John Bolton, and now the attack on Salman Rushdie. Why do you think the Islamic Republic has increased its threat against activist, author in the United States of America, on U.S. soil?
I think because the regime in Iran thinks that they can get away with it, and clearly they are. I think this sets an incredibly dangerous precedent. We would have never, under Mike Pompeo and President Trump and our team at the State Department, we never would have allowed this to happen. We never would have been negotiating while a regime was trying to assassinate current and former administration officials. This is unconscionable that the Biden administration is allowing this to happen. Jake Sullivan, the national security advisor, I thought his statement was very weak after Salman Rushdie was horrifically and brutally attacked. So the people of Iran should know that there are still plenty of us, even though we're not in power right now, that stand by them. They should know that there's many, many members of Congress on both sides of the aisle, Republicans and
That's
Democrats,
my
who are
question,
watching this
actually.
behavior closely.
Yeah, that's actually my concern and my question and the concern of millions of Iranian people. Unlike Taiwan, it appears that the Democrats and Republicans do not agree when it comes to Islamic Republic, when it comes to handle the Islamic Republic. This is the question. What can we do? What can all Americans do to get Democrats and Republicans see these threats as a bipartisan issue?
So you make a great point, and I do think you're right about the current state of where the Republicans and Democrats are in Iran. I actually worked in both the Bush administration, and then I was still at the Treasury Department for the first term of the Obama administration. And there actually felt like there was a lot of continuity on Iran policy between Bush and Obama at the very beginning. Remember, the first term of the Obama administration, they were still putting sanctions on Iran. They were still very tough before they started to go into the negotiations. So we definitely lost that bipartisan consensus in Washington. What I don't think the Democrats are obviously in the right place as it relates to negotiating this deal with Iran. I think that they are capitulating, they're cajoling, they're trying to beg them back into a deal. That's not the position that America needs to be in. But what people like you, Iranian Americans, Iranians around the world to do is they can let their voice be heard. They can reach out to members of Congress, to the administration, and they could let people know that that you do not stand by a deal that's only going to empower a regime with billions of dollars in sanctions relief.
That's the
That's going to
point.
empower a regime that's oppressing your people.
But that's the point. So I met with Biden administration, with Trump administration. But what I want to make it clear here that even President Trump mentioned that he can make the best deal with the Islamic Republic. Right now, we see that President Biden actually trying to reach some sort of agreement with the Islamic Republic. Why do the American politicians want, to us Iranians, they're really desperate to get the deal, but none of the administrations mention about human rights under the 12 conditions during Trump's administration. And right now as well, we see that, the same. Why they don't mention about human rights through their negotiation with the Islamic Republic?
Well, the Biden team that are negotiating certainly should. Listen, when I was State Department spokesperson, I think and hope that you and your viewers will remember when I came on board. We really started talking heavily about human rights. I started speaking up for the women in Iran and everything that they were going through, and we made it an effort every single time that we were messaging on Iran. Mike Pompeo and we talked about it, and we determined that it was incredibly important for the people of Iran to know that we were with them, that we were supporting them. You'll remember that Pompeo spoke out publicly from the podium with the Telegram channel to try and get regular Iranians during that fall 2019 crackdown on the protests. We opened up a Telegram channel at the State Department so that those human rights abuses could be reported. And we could always do more on human rights. Absolutely. It should be. Tony Blinken said it was going to be at the forefront of his foreign policy. It's not, and it should be.
I mean, Iranians want that to happen because right now many women are in prison, the mothers of those people who got killed in prison. But we know that terrorists do not, respect their promises and their agreements. In the previous administration, there was agreement with Taliban They did not
Yeah.
respect their, at the end, what happened. So right now, I want to actually make sure that how the U.S. administration tried to negotiate with a government which, to many of Iranians, there is no different with them, to Taliban, to ISIS.
Yeah, I think it's a mistake. Listen, we in the Pompeo and Trump administration, when we left, we believed that we had handed the Biden team a lot of leverage. We obviously had the maximum economic pressure campaign against the regime. We were very steadfast. That we were going to counter Iranian aggression throughout the Middle East, throughout the world, wherever it needed to be. We were determined that they would not get a nuclear weapon. President Trump said that multiple times, that it would not happen on his watch. And so you saw that we took lots of actions as it relates towards sanctions and trying to get the international community to support the people of Iran. So we believe we handed this administration, the Biden team, a lot of leverage. I think that leverage has been squandered in the meetings because they seem to want to deal at any cost. And while President Trump certainly had indicated that he would be open to a peaceful resolution and open to negotiations, it wasn't at any cost, right? It wasn't a deal for the sake of a deal. And I think that's where the Biden team is screwing up, is that they think the words on the paper matter more than actions, and we know that actions matter.
But let me be honest with you. The Iranian government, reformist or conservative, when it comes to United States of America, they all hate America. They want to fight American government. I'm sure you follow the current negotiation in Vienna as well. What is your take on this situation? Are Republican and Democrats are united the same way like the reformists and conservative are united against America, or still?
Yeah. That's a really interesting question, Masi. I actually am seeing more Republicans and Democrats starting to be united on the deal, this potential new deal, than they were even a year ago, whenever the negotiations started again. You're actually seeing more Democrats in Congress that have a lot of discomfort, that have a lot of unease with what the Biden team is negotiating. There was a concern that the IRGC would be taken off the foreign terrorist, the FTO designation. That's something they wanted. And I see, with senators like Menendez and others, they understand that this deal is not perhaps the winner takes all deal that they thought it was going to be. There definitely is a concern about preventing Iran getting a nuclear weapon from both sides. But I'm starting to see, the Republican side is very consolidated, that they are going to oppose this deal if there are no safeguards on the Islamic Republics of Iran actions around the Middle East. Remember, when Tony Blinken was testifying before Congress in his confirmation hearing as Secretary of State, he talked about the fact that he wanted to negotiate a longer and stronger deal. He wanted a deal that did not just talk about nuclear weapons, but that also stopped the support for terrorism and the brutal oppression that the regime does not only to their people, but funding those terrorist groups around the Middle East. Obviously, ballistic missiles. So initially, when Tony Blinken spoke about this, I thought, okay, perhaps there's something that can be done here if they can actually use the leverage that the Trump administration gave them and to get a longer and stronger deal. But they no longer talk about that anymore.
Yeah.
There's no talk about stopping the terrorist behavior. There's no talk about human rights. There's only a talk about stopping a nuclear weapon, which won't even happen, as we know, with this deal because there's so many sunset provisions in it. So I think that the Biden administration is going to be surprised if they do get back into this deal. They're not only going to face fierce resistance from Republicans, but some Democrats as well.
Yeah, you're being very critical of the current administration. My question is that how you and other Republicans can help Iranian people right now, because to be honest, for many of Iranians, it's just like they're being abandoned by the West. How you and your fellow politicians and party can help Iranian people and people of Afghanistan to be heard?
Right. So there's only one administration at a time, right? The American people have spoken, and that's the Biden administration right now. So the question is, when we are out of power, what can we do? Well, first of all, we know elections have consequences. We are all working very hard to try and get a Republican majority in the House and in the Senate in these midterm elections. And that will give us crucial power because it will give us the chair of foreign affairs, intel, defense committees, which will allow us to hold Biden's political appointees at the State Department, at the Defense Department. It will give us the ability to hold them accountable for the decisions that they are making. And so that's what we're all working diligently on. The second thing that we're all doing is speaking out, raising awareness. This is why I'm coming on your show. This is why I write op-eds about this and I talk about this. My former boss, Mike Pompeo, just gave an interview yesterday where he said he did not think, key members of the Iranian regime should be given visas or should be allowed in New York for UN General Assembly when, as you have pointed out, they're currently trying to assassinate Americans on our own soil. So we are working every day to try to hold the Biden administration accountable, to try to ramp up the pressure. We believe that we are doing this on behalf of the Iranian people because we believe, we feel that you are standing with us against what we think will be a seriously flawed deal. It would only give more power to the mullahs.
Morgan, I know that you follow our campaign and you've been speaking up for many women who are still in prison, White Wednesdays activists and other women who want to remove their hijab. That's amazing. But why many feminists and many congresswomen and many just women in America still keep silent when it comes to my body, my choice in Iran and Afghanistan?
I think we need to continue to educate them, to educate women in America, to let them know what's going on around the world. And that's part of what, I'm doing today and what we do in general. We have obviously our own issues here at home, and Americans, I think, can get a little inward, fixated and focused sometimes. You live here, sometimes world affairs aren't at the top of everyone's list. And that's why I think it's important for me to be engaged in the media and to talk to women. Because listen, when average American women hear the story of what you're going through, what the women around are going through, there's definitely, when I tell the story, there's definitely a sense of solidarity and a feeling of wanting to support all of you. So it is trying to break through the media narratives, break through all the stuff that's going on around the world to keep this issue front and center. And that's why, Masih, what you are doing is so incredibly and indelibly important.
Thank you so much. The Iranian regime do not like you. They don't like you. They kind of hate you as well. What is your message to the Iranian regime right now? If they listen to you, what are you going to tell them?
Yeah, that's kind of funny that, well, I don't know why they hate me. Listen, if they hate me, it's because they hate what I stand for. And what I stand for is freedom. What I stand for is the ability for people to go to work in the morning, to come home, to cook dinner for their family, to take care of their children, to live in peace, to not be afraid that maybe their kids won't come home, to not be afraid that they're going to get beaten for not wearing the hijab, properly. I think, I've been all around the world. I've been in and out of Iraq and Afghanistan many times, and different places where women have traditionally been oppressed. I've never been to Iran, Masih. Maybe we'll end up
I'm going to invite you one day to go to Iran. But last question.
I want to.
Many years that you've seen Iranians, some of them being brainwashed and burning the flag of America. What do you feel about this when you see that? And do you really think that this is Iran or the Islamic Republic? Because many people, even in the West, they still think that Iranian burning the flag of America, Iranians saying death to America. How do you see, the difference between Iran and the Islamic Republic?
So I remember very vividly, I think it was after the airliner went down in early 2020, there was an image that really went viral in the US, and there was an American flag and I believe a flag of Israel. And the Iranian people would not walk on to the flag, right? They went around it as a show of a sign of respect. And I believe that's where the majority of Iranians are. Sure, are there people that have believed and bought into the lies and the deceit of the regime? Absolutely, right? That happens in many places of the world. But we were also encouraged in America when we saw the respect for our flag, when we saw this respect for Israel's flag. I know that we can live in peace. Ultimately, the path forward for Iran is up to the Iranian people. But I know that myself and Mike Pompeo and so many people in our administration will continue to stand with the Iranian people and stand for their ability to choose a peaceful and free life and to choose a government that best represents them.
Thank you so much. And I'm sure that one day I'm going to invite you to Iran and I will talk to you in my homeland. Thank you so much.
I love it.